Hi, it's belly time. But before we get onto the belly, there's just a wee little bit more of the insides, just to round it all off. Where I left you last time, I was going to put some masking tape around the handle of this, and I have done, thus bringing the diameter at this point up to that of the little stocking that holds the lead in place. That is therefore going to only need a straight cut triangle of leather for the filler, and it'll give a nice handle junction, much as this fella here. This is a bit of an experiment. That's using the sharp 12 inches of the 43-inch driving whip core, and that's the next section down. This has got just the finest 2 lead weights on the end, and this has the full 6 sets, full 6. Right, that's that one. The 5-foot bullwhip with a single piece filler and shoulder. As you see, that's turned out really quite nice. I did have to do a little bit more skiving before binding the thing on, but that's the way it goes. You skive it, you have a little look, you skive some more off. Unless you're a total expert, you do it in one hit. Here's the 7-footer with the naturally falling thong and the steel handle foundation, and that has turned out really very solid and very round, rolled up very nicely. As you see, I've drilled and pinned it, so that's not going anywhere, and the next layer will just be a chamfer filler there. So here's our project, and here is the first piece of graph, first line of the graph, showing right, parallel-sided fiberglass rod up until 6 inches, and then it tapers down. As you see, it's pretty good taper, and that's to where it's bound to there, and that's just a guesswork as to where it's going to end up. I've noticed the position of the lead and that's simply length in 3-inch increments against diameter in 2mm increments. So all I do is get my calipers, and at 3-inch intervals measure the diameter, and then swivel it around about 90 degrees or so, or find that if there is a thick point and a thin point, find them and average it out, so 2 or 3 readings at each point. Plot them on the graph, there you go. Plot them in pencil first, just in case you put them in the wrong place, as I have done. Okay, on to the belly. Right. The overall width of strands that I want to encircle the butt in is going to be 1.5 times the circumference. So we've got about 40 mils circumference, we've got about 60 mils, 1.5 times. That'll be, I mean, if I made that a 12 plate, that'd be 5 mil. That's going to be rather finer than necessary for a belly, so I'm going to make 8 strands 7.5 mils wide. That will give me my 60. And those 7.5 mil wide strands are going to taper down to 3 mils at the end, and then carry on as 3 mils as the point core for the overlay. Right, I will need 1.5 times the length of strand that I'm going. Let's rephrase that. Yeah, I'm going to need 1.5 times the finished length of strands, plus a bit of spare. So the way I do this is, right, it tapers from the 6-inch point there to the end of the core there. So that's 61 minus 6, not minus 14, because the rest of it tapers. Multiplied, that's 55, multiplied by 1.5, that's roughly 82 inches. So it's going to taper from 3 to 7.5. Not the other way around, because these are going to be double taper strands. I'm going to start at their point, taper them up towards here, and then taper them back down again. So I'm going to need 3 to 7.5 millimeters by 82 inches. That's 1.5 times, just going close you can see that, 1.5 times 61 minus 6, and that gives 4.5 inches per quarter. I'm probably going ahead of you because I've done this before. So, right, okay, what have we got? 61 minus 6 equals 55 times 1.5 equals 82.5, 82, right. Now, about this 4.5 inches per quarter business. 7.5 millimeters subtract 3 equals 4.5 mils of drop. Multiplied by 4 equals 18 millimeters of drop. 82 divided by 18 equals 4.5 and change, doesn't matter, 4.5 inches per quarter inch of drop. Then I've got 7 intervals of 7 4.5 inch intervals at 7.5 millimeters for the parallel section of the grip and for the butt extension. Because that's going to go up and back down, so there's 6, 11, twice, that's 22, times 1.5 because I'm plaiting, 33, round it down a little bit because it's going to stretch. And now on to how to cut tapered strands. Grab a piece of goat skin. This is veg-tanned goat, about 6 3/4 square foot, this piece. And it's a smidgen thicker than kangaroo, and it's a smidgen thinner than calf, and the grain is somewhere between the two. I haven't actually made a whip out of this stuff yet. Made other things, but not a whip. But I strongly suspect that it would be very good gear for the job. A friend of mine is using it. Not this dry crust stuff, she gets waxy pull-up leather from somewhere in Spain. Mandy, she's in Barcelona, so that makes life easy, doesn't it? Right, trad method of cutting whip strands, as you might have seen from other people's videos, or read in David Morgan's book, etc., is you mark out how big you want it, or you do it by eye, and with a nice sharp knife, like this Mora electrician's knife in carbon steel. Now, the trad way is to use your thumbnail. I've never been able to do that because all my thumbnails are hacked and buggered and never been any good at it, right? So what I use is the ball of my thumb. It also helps if a knife doesn't have a ricasso or choil because it can drop into that and get snagged. So the opinels are good for this and the Moras are good for this. And this is pretty much the way you would cut tapered strands, or indeed parallel-sided strands. And you would gradually bring the ball of your thumb closer to the strand until it comes out like that. And you end up with a little tiny, short, tapered strand. Well, you do it longer, but there's no point wasting leather. Right, that's a world of practice, which can get very expensive, both in time and materials. What I did was get a little bit of cardboard and mark from 3 to 12 millimeters in 1 millimeter increments in groups of 3 like that, and sit that on the end of my knife. And I think I actually made that for a different knife. This is a bit chunkier. Never mind. Make another one. Right, so let's go up to the 6 millimeter mark. That's there. And now you've got something to actually use as a guide while trying to point the camera in the right direction. Oh, I can see this, but I'm not sure you can. Right, try there. A bit contortionist. And there you go, you can see the number, you can see the leather, you can use your thumbnail or ball of your thumb as a guide, and it's also got a little platform to rest the leather on so it runs through more smoothly. That's a nice way of doing it. It's nice and convenient. Put that one in there, out of the way. If I were cutting fillers or bolsters and I couldn't use a straight edge, I'd use this. So I cut what I could with a straight edge, and then I go, okay, I need so many millimeters drop per inch, or so many inches per millimeter, you know, I'd work out the taper. And this one I don't use my thumb, I just hold the thing steady, because it might be out to here, it might be a 2-inch wide section. And then I can just draw that in and make sure the leather just creeps gently towards the blade at the right sort of rate. And that, as I say, good for bolsters, good for fillers and cores and things like that. But not quite precise enough for fine plait whips. So, it was back to the drawing board, and I came up with these. Tapered strand cutters. Left and right-handed versions. Look, how considerate is that? This one, these are prototypes. This one has the hooked Stanley blade in it and is set up for that. This one, I'm having a go with the snap-off blades. Just loosen this little doodah here and slide it in and out as required and tighten up again. And this is a 1mm per turn pitch screw or bolt with custom-made brass nut with 8 facets. So it's at 0/8 there, and it will offer 1/8 of a millimeter increments. So what we do now is put Mr. Kangaroo's over there, this one, put that one in there, and get out my trusty bit of stick. A random useful bit of stick. And I want 7.5 inches. No, I don't. I want 4.5 inches per quarter. Right, so let's mark all this out. There's probably a neater way of doing this, but off the cuff, can't think of one. So it's 4.5 inches. Double check that it is indeed 4.5 inches. Yes, good. Right. And put a little thing there so I don't end up holding it by the wrong end. Pen. Here you are. So 7 at 3 to 7.5. 7 at 7.5, and that's per quarter. And it goes both ways. So this needs to go up here. 2 pairs. Right, let's have a little look at the kangaroo skin. Here you are. First up, let's trim him off. I don't want to take too much off, it's jolly expensive stuff. That'll be useful for a bag. Or half a bag. So you can go to one side for later. With kangaroo skin, the weak patches, or the stretchy patches, more tick bitten and scarred and everything, tend to be the neck and down the sides and the flanks. Across the butt is the strongest leather. It's also got the least stretch and also tends to maintain its thickness more. So, pushing it a bit finer. Should actually cut this piece off because I have a need for it. Get rid of that and put you to one side. Yeah, the little tail bits, that if you want a chunky thick piece of leather for anything with low stretch, that's where to find it. And this is a different shape of, they call these ears, don't know why, they're thighs really. Perhaps they reckon that these things are related to grasshoppers. Quite stretchy up here. Actually, I'll keep that bit as well. Right, one nice trimmed kangaroo skin. How big is it? How thick is it, I should say. Because that's the next thing that I'm going to do. Is 1.1, 1.1, 1.0, 1.18. Yeah, quite a lot of variation. Okay, better write that all in. The more information I have, the better. So this is... How big is this? Let's see. Not to worry. Okay, so that's 1.0/1.18 millimeters saddle tan first set off. So it's the outer leather. Nice clean skin though. Right. Put these little doings away. So I shall need you. And you, not so much you, and you. Ah, yeah, and you always have a pokey stick, whether you need one or not. Right, now, the traditional way of cutting strands, from what I have read, there may be different traditions, is to cut them to a yoke, which is all attached at one end, and you wrap that end around your core, and away you go. Now if you cut your strands like that, they will all go through, until they go round a few times and separate out like runners on track, they will all go through the thick and thin, stretchy and non-stretchy places together. So you need to be very careful about allowing for the extra stretch in those sections, and you might have to pass them through a splitter to split them down to an even substance, otherwise you get lumps and bumps. You can mitigate that by starting the strands, cutting the strands at different points. I cut them as pairs because you've got two sets of spirals, one going left, one going right, and I want the same width of leather on both sides at any point. So I'll have one strand going, I'll have a pair of strands starting at the same place, and one will go left and one will go right. So they'll coincide their thin and thick patches. The next pair will offset. I shall show you. Yak, yak, rabbit, rabbit, and the tools are right here. Okay. Now, I would like the handle part of the whip to be about here, or the first part of the thong to be about here. First thing to do is to stretch it. Get as much stretch out as possible. I know what I've got to play with. I hope this camera doesn't die. It's been a little bit dicky, but I would like to get this all done in one hit, even if I'm just cutting one pair of strands. Oh yes, if you want arms like tractors, whip making is a really good profession. There's lots of heaving and tugging. It's an excuse to eat tons of steak and drink lots of ale, because steak and ale are good for whip making. See these weedy little arms of mine? They're stronger than they look, okay? Stop sniggering. I can hear you sniggering at my weedy arms. Ugh, God! As you see, it goes kind of crinkly. It gets a little bit bigger. Better it does that now than when you're offering up the strands to a whip and find out they're half the width they should be. So I heave and tug some more. Because yes, I have thrown whips in the bin. Not a few whips either. I go, no, it's gone too badly wrong and is irretrievable. Bin. Okay, this is nice chunky leather. It's got a good feel to it. It's also quite a clean skin. Hey Jack, this is your whip. Look, look. Nice, isn't it? These little scars. Let's have a little look and see how many come through the other side. I also like the fact that it hasn't got any bullet holes in it. It means it's been shot in the head. Right, okay. So let's just say this piece. No, I shan't. I'll just do it because that's the easiest way, isn't it? Really. Right, method. Let's just, for no particular reason, start here. Got to start somewhere. And this is strand number 1. So I put a little thingy in it there. And that's the pointy end of this strand. Okay. See if all this works. See if I can do this and keep the camera pointed in the right direction. What do I want? 7.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 7 and 4/8. No, I don't. I want 3, don't I? Just read what I've written. 7 at 3. 1 mil, 2 mils, 3 mils. Right, okay. So 1 interval of 4.5 inches at 3 mils. Oh yeah, I've got to remember I started from here, because that's where I'm starting the second strand. I could do them parallel, but I prefer to do it like this. 2. Oh shit, I lost my place. Oh, there's 3. 2, 3. 3. 4. 3. 5 at 3. Still recovering from drinking too much last night. Fucking hell. Is that 6? Oh, I'm pointing the camera in the wrong direction again. Sorry, bear with me. Right. Is that, have I lost count already? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, by the way, I've got the bits for a number of these little things, so if you want one, get in touch. alex@cobrawhips.com. Left or right hand, hooked or plain blade, specify. All this yakking, I forget what I'm doing. I don't usually do this right. 1, 2, 3, straight camera, oh gee, lad, come on. Right, okay, we're up to 3 to 7.5, and in quarters. Right, so I'm going to go up to 3 and 1/8, 3 and 2/8, 3 1/4, 3 and 1/2, 3 and 3/4, 4, 4 and 1/4, 4 and 1/2, 4 and 3/4, 5, 5 and 1/4, 5 and 1/2, 5 and 3/4. Oops, try not to knock the paraffin lantern over. 6, 6 and 1/4, 6 and 1/2, 6 and 3/4, 7. Can you see that? 7 and 1/4, 7 and 1/2. No, 7 at 7.5. Good. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and taper it back down again. Right, 7.5, 7 and 1/4, 7, 6, and crinkly, 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 6 and 3/4. I'm going to need reading glasses soon. I'm doing this by braille. 3/4, 6 and 1/2. So I keep on showing you the candles and tankard and everything. I meant to be showing you this, aren't I? 6 and 1/4. Which means I'm tucking my chin right into my chest here. This is why I'm sounding like this. 6. 5 and 3/4. Okay. 5 and 1/2. 5 and 1/4. 5. 4 and 3/4. 4 and 1/2. 4 and 1/4. 3 and 3/4, 3 and a half, 3 and a quarter, 3. 1 at 3, 2 at 3, 3 at 3, 4 at 3, 5 at 3, 6 at 3, and 7 at 3. Now, what I do is I chop this off. This is just my little peculiarity. Chop it off like that, so it's square-ended. So this is number 1 strand, and I started off cutting it at this end, so I want to match that end up against the second strand, or the second one of this pair. And so what I do is re-stretch it, because I'm onto the second strand. That's a good idea. Give it loads. Now, the first strand is from slightly more outer leather than the second strand. So if I cut them as... okay. How am I going to explain this? I want the same volume of leather going down one way, so I cut a point and then a square. So for the second pair I'm going to cut a square and then a point, just so it evens itself out. It might become apparent, I might be havering, I don't yet know. Let's have a look. I was off here, wasn't I? The first one, so... that one is now cut off square, so that when the square ends are pointing one way and the pointy ends are pointing the other way, these will make a nice pair which will match the points. And I put a 1 here, so I know this is number 1 strand, or number 1 pair. And that's the start of it. I used to put a little dot on each end, but then I didn't know which end I'd cut first, so... it's just about matching it all up. And then I go through the rigmarole of cutting the strand again with the little strand cutter thing. And for the next pair, because that's a pair of strands joined up in the middle. So that's 2 strands, there's another 2, and for the second pair of strands, I'm going to start, let's see, where did I end? I'm going to start at a place which is neither a start or an end on this pair, so it evens out the stretchy and non-stretchy patches. I don't think I need to show you that. I've cut a strand. Cutting the other 3 strands is very, very similar. In fact, it's pretty much identical. But as you see, with this method, you end up with a pretty good tapered strand. I like to do a little bit wider than I need, because it's always easier trimming some off. If you haven't got enough at the outset, then you could cut some more strands, or just save that overlay for another whip. But there you go, doddle. Okay, I'll get the rest of these done, and then we're on to greasing and stretching and pairing and strand preparation generally. Cheers! Later, fans.